Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Inspired and Empowered Living TV show on W4WN.com, Talk4TV.com, and YouTube. And we are live Tuesday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern. And are you ready to live an inspired and empowered life? Today, we will be talking about the power of self-love. We will discuss the benefits of self-love, and when you love yourself, your relationship with yourself and others will begin to transform. Watch as your life changes. Experience what it's like to have an inspired and empowered life. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Nanci Deutsch. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified hypnotherapist, and intuitive breakthrough expert. And I combine my counseling, coaching, and intuitive abilities to transform your life and my clients' lives. And you can find us on the podcast as well on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, and Apple. After the show is over, you can listen on the podcast or you can view again on YouTube. And this show is not a replacement for therapy or counseling. It is for educational purposes only. So I'd like to welcome Allie. Welcome, Allie. Good morning. And we're going to talk about something that has started to become more popular, and for a very long time it wasn't. And this is the power of self-love. When people used to talk about loving themselves, they could be called selfish or how can you do that? You know, it's always about giving to other people, not thinking of yourself as selfish. Well, I just really want to all let you know none of that is true. The power of self-love is the most important love of all. And it's learning to find that self-love, because when you love yourself, your life changes. And things that would normally perhaps trigger you or upset you don't have to be so upsetting, or you are just opening to the new possibilities, the miracles, and the synchronicities. And that's the power of self-love. And I'll share with you, when I had a lot of trauma growing up, and my self-esteem was really low. And my lack of confidence, I didn't trust myself. I didn't believe in myself. And then I started really working on the self-love and really learning to love myself. And when I was not feeling that love, I was attracting to me abusive relationships that were not healthy. I was attracting things. This is all about the law of attraction. And I was attracting people, places, and things that were not for my highest good. And as I started loving myself, and it was a process, and over time, and the more that I did my personal and spiritual growth, the more self-love happened. And now I feel more confident. I feel confident doing a TV show. A few years ago, I wanted to do it, but I wasn't afraid. I was afraid. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel capable. And here I am. I'm doing it now. And the other thing I wanted to share with you today. So this is learning to be authentic and learning to be yourself and to feel your feelings is part of being. It's part of being real. It's part of loving yourself and really tuning in to what is occurring for you. So this morning I meditated and I was tuning into myself, and I could feel an energy like right in my throat. I felt like I wanted to cry. And I didn't know what it was. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me. It occurred to me that what I was feeling was grief. And so I just I acknowledged it. I allowed myself to feel it. I allowed myself to be connected with it. My father's birthday will be on Thursday, and he passed a couple of years ago. And it doesn't matter with grief. You can miss a loved one. Could be years. And all of a sudden the memory or the feeling comes, or the anniversary comes, and you start feeling it. And it's okay. It's okay to feel it. So I want you to know that it's okay to allow yourself to feel your feelings. That's a really, really important part of self-love, is allowing yourself to feel all your feelings, even the ones you may not like, or the ones you want to deny, the ones you want to push away, like grief or anger or fear, or perhaps even shame or guilt. Those are the feelings you want to push away. But in order for that self-love to grow, and in order for you to feel more connected, more confident in yourself, it's about honoring all and loving yourself, because we're all human and each one of us is going to have all the feelings. You cannot escape feeling if you're on the planet. Now, as a person, some of you may be much more intensely feelers than others. Some of you may be shut down. And maybe you've numbed your feelings because they became too overwhelming. But wherever you are on that spectrum, whether numb and not feeling, or you feel too intensely and sometimes get overwhelmed by all the feelings, it's about breathing and learning step by step to acknowledge each feeling, to allow your feelings to flow, to not deny, not run away, not avoid, but to feel and breathe through it and acknowledge it. And that's what I did this morning. Now, I was talking to Juan, my engineer, right before the show started. And I was, even when you're talking to somebody, sometimes when you're in that process, that's what therapy and counseling and coaching is all about. That's what I do. And it's being in the energy of the process. And sometimes it's having a witness, someone that will hear you And so I was just talking about what was coming up for me this morning, and then I just felt it and I started crying. And he said, and then I said to him, it's the one thing you can't escape. You can't escape grief. For that matter, we can't escape feeling. As a human being, you're going to have all the feelings. And the power of self-love is learning to feel and know and make them okay, as long as you're not hurting yourself, you're not hurting someone else, and you're not hurting the environment, like destroying property. The power of self-love is the power of connecting with your feelings and your emotions. And it is part of being human. And it is something that you cannot escape. But the more you feel, the more you heal. My motto, or in order to heal, you need to feel. And very often when I'm working with clients, that is one of the most important things that we end up doing, is helping them discover, what are you feeling? What are you feeling in this moment? What are you feeling today? How are you feeling? How do you feel about that subject? So I'm talking a lot about feelings because it's an important part of self-love. And self-love is really connecting with yourself on every level, your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Those are the levels. I'm all about the holistic approach. So, and I also want you to know that when you love yourself, your life does change. It cannot not transform. Or let me say it in a positive way that makes it easier to understand. Your life changes when you start loving yourself, and you will see the transformation happening around you. And the more you love yourself, the more worthy, the more deserving, the more you allow yourself to receive and know that you deserve it, the more opportunities come, the blessings come. You open to everything, to all of it. That's the power of self-love. And I also want to remind, because some of you may not realize this, there's a distinction I really want to make with you. And the distinction is, if someone is boasting, or if you find yourself boasting, I did this and that, and I'm so good, and I da da da, and that doesn't mean that's self-love. Or if you build yourself up at someone else's expense, that's not self-love. That is not feeling good enough, because underneath that is not feeling good enough, or not feeling worthy and deserving. So what is true self-love? It's a deep sense of confidence. It's knowing your strengths and knowing your limitations and accepting all of your strengths and your limitations. And it doesn't mean that you don't share your strengths. It doesn't mean that you don't acknowledge, because what's really important, is an important part of self-love, is acknowledging the things when you do a good job, acknowledging when you're really proud of yourself. That's real. Okay. And it's different than the energy of boasting. And so what I ask you is to look at the intention when you're sharing with someone, and to look at your intention. What are you really feeling under the communication? Now, if you're feeling confident or you're really proud of yourself, you really want to acknowledge yourself. That's really important. Celebrating your wins, celebrating who you are. That's self-love. If the intention is to boast to someone else to get their approval, I'm so good and I did it. It's a very different, and there's a distinction. And I really want to support you in getting the distinction. If you're looking for someone else's approval, then there's another layer of not feeling good enough or not feeling worthy and deserving, and looking for that outside person to approve of you. Deep self-love is that unconditional love of the self, where you don't need someone else's approval. And it's being able to really experience that love. So Jolene was a client that I work with. And when she first came to me, she wasn't feeling confident, good enough. And she would look to others for approval. And she was constantly looking to other people for approval. And then as we started working together and as she started healing and healing the deeper layers, she began to get in touch with that place of confidence and self-love deep within. And she stopped looking for the outside approval. Now, it's not to say that we don't want it, because every single one of us, that's another human. It always feels good to be acknowledged. In fact, it's important to acknowledge yourself and others. But you don't need it. And there's a distinction there. Now, if anybody in the live chat, if you have any questions about anything that I'm sharing, please type in a question. Now, if you're listening or viewing at a later time, you can always type in your questions as well. I'd love to answer your questions and hear your comments. So please feel free to do that at another time as well. And I'm glad that you're joining, whether you're viewing live or at a later time. And the other thing that I really want you to know is that how we treat ourselves is going to be a reflection of how others treat us. So if you are not loving yourself, if you are mean to yourself, if you're abusive to yourself, you beat yourself up, you may more easily attract that in your life. When you love yourself and you feel more confident, you will find that you won't tolerate other people treating you poorly. Either A, you'll set the limits and the boundaries, or you'll say, this isn't working for me anymore. And you may end up you may need to end the friendship or the partnership or the relationship, whatever it is. So Know that as you grow in self-love, your relationships will change. They cannot stay the same because you have changed on that deeper level. And so it's really allowing that change to happen. Self-love is a joyful experience. So unconditional self-love, what does that really mean? So I'm going to define it for you so that we're all on the same page. When I mean unconditional self-love, if you can think of a loved one, a pet, someone or something that you love so dearly, and you just love them. You love them for who they are. You accept them. That's unconditional self-love. It's learning to love yourself unconditionally, that you don't have to be something you're not. You learning to accept yourself. You learn to accept your feelings. And it doesn't mean that you don't want to change. Like learning self-love to me is an ongoing experience. It's not something like, ooh, poof, you got it. And it's all done. It's a journey. It's not a destination. So wherever you are on that scale of self-love, whether because I've had people come to me self-loathing and hating, self-hating, and people that needed more support in the self-love to get them to that place of unconditional self-love. Wherever you are, however it manifests for you, ultimately know that you are an unlimited being. And there is no limit to the amount of self-love that you allow to give to yourself and unconditional love you give to others. It's an ongoing journey. So it's not a destination, it's a journey. And I want to thank you for being on the journey with me because you're tuning in. Whether you're tuning into the video or the podcast, glad you're here. Thank you. And learning that self-love and being on that journey of unconditional love means you learn to trust yourself. It's learning to trust your intuition. I'm all about intuition and teaching you how to tap into your intuition and then learning to trust it. Learning to trust that you can trust yourself. Learning to really learn how to trust your decisions. And the best decisions are made when you tap into your intuition and follow your guidance. Learning, you're in the journey. So when you make a mistake, and this is all part of self-love, it's learning to say, oh, I made a mistake. If you need to apologize, support you in apologizing to someone else, or you may even need to apologize to yourself and say, what opportunity? What have I learned from this experience? How can I see this as an opportunity to grow? And that's how you can transform it in something where you could beat yourself up if you make a mistake. I've had a lot of clients through the years beating themselves up because they made mistakes. And when you start looking at it, how can I look at this as an opportunity? It transforms you. And another part of self-love is learning to be honest with yourself. Now, sometimes that self-honesty can be really hard. I'm not saying it's an easy journey, but it's a very worthwhile journey. And learning to be honest with yourself about your intentions. Like, that's what I was talking about before. What is it that you're intending when you're having a conversation with someone? To really get honest with yourself. And the more honest that you are with yourself, and then learning to forgive yourself or accept where you're at in your journey. We're all at different places, and wherever you are at is absolutely fine. It is so fine. Wherever you're at, be in your journey. Allow yourself to discover and to discover more about you. Now, honesty can come in and be challenging when we have shadow parts. And the shadow parts are the parts of you may not want to look at. They're really parts of you that you may want to deny or avoid or push away. And it can be really hard to be honest with yourself about those parts. So, what do I mean by shadow parts? Shadow parts are, and another way you can look at those parts is if someone in your life, or even it may not be someone you're close to, it may be someone, an acquaintance, or it may be someone where you're just in a store and someone really triggers you. You really react. And you're reacting to something that they did or said. Something for you to look at, it may be a shadow. So, a shadow part, like it could be a victim. A shadow part could be a rager. A shadow part could be someone who's a liar. And it doesn't mean that you are a liar all the time, but maybe there's a part of you that do white lies. Or maybe you do more lies. Maybe you feel you need to protect yourself. But underneath every shadow part, there is a reason why you have it. And so I just really want to support you in remembering that every part of you, there's a reason why it's there. And learning to understand what those parts are, what purpose they serve, how they've served you. And maybe there's a cheater. Maybe it's so many different ways that those shadow parts can surface. And the more that you acknowledge and own them, work to heal them, and then accept or embrace the healed version, or just acknowledge them, the more that can lead to self-love. And Allie says, I think we have to embrace and love our shadow self also, and learn how to refocus the bad into something good. Thank you, Allie. That is so, so, so true. And I will tell you that there's, like, I don't think that we have one shadow self. I think there are parts of us. See, when I'm working with people, this is coming from the many different techniques and ways that I've learned and the own system that I've developed, is that there are many parts of us. And each of those parts, now some of them are parts of that shadow. So the shadow self can be a combination of many parts or several parts. It doesn't have to be one self. But the shadow part is an important part, or those shadow aspects, parts are really important to understand. And I'll share a book with you that I love. It's a great book for healing the shadow. And it's Debbie Ford, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. The Dark Side of the Light Chasers is a book by Debbie Ford. And she talks all about the shadow and how to embrace it, how to heal it. So I definitely recommend that book. Great book. And learning to respect yourself. Learning to respect yourself. And really respect and honor all of the different aspects of self. The more that you respect yourself, the more others will respect you. And again, what ends up happening is the more that you love yourself, the more you respect yourself, you will see that reflected in your world, in your outside environment. You see the reflection. The more you respect yourself. So, what does self-respect mean? Self-respect is when you look at, and if there's someone that is, you really want to say no, and you don't say no, and you don't stand your ground, learning to respect yourself is when you can say, no, right now I need this time for me, or no, I can't do that right now. And it doesn't mean that it's a no all the time. It may mean it's a no right now. And learning to respect yourself and what your needs are and what you desire, that's self-respect. And that's a really important part of self-love. Learning that self-respect. Again, learning to accept yourself. And really coming into that place of, like what Allie was talking about, it's learning how to refocus the bad into something good. And so when you refocus and reframe, and then it helps you learn to accept those parts that you may not want to look at, or accept those parts. And I also want to remind you, it doesn't mean that this is not about not changing. If there's a part of you, let's say you're a rager, and you scream and yell, and you don't like that part, and it's not who you want to be, that's a shadow part. And it doesn't mean that you accept, oh, it's okay for me to rage and hurt other people that I love. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about, because when your behavior is hurting yourself or someone you love, that is a behavior that needs healing. It doesn't mean beating yourself up about it. It means acknowledging and accepting that you need healing around this issue. So let's say being a rager, and you don't want to be screaming and yelling at the people you love. You want to learn new coping skills. You want to learn how to channel your anger in healthy ways. so that you're not dumping or shaming or blaming the ones you love. That is transforming yourself. And when you do that, you begin to love yourself more. And it's learning to accept that, yes, there are behaviors that need changing. See, it's not accepting the behavior, but accepting that this is something that you have had, that you have it for a reason. There's a reason that you became a rager, or there's a reason you became a liar, or there's a reason that shadow part exists, or the part that you don't like exists. It's understanding, what does that part mean and how do you heal it? And embracing, like Ali was saying, embracing it so that that self-love grows, so that you transform the rage into healthy communication, learning how to communicate your anger. You channel the anger in healthy ways, like exercising, or twisting a towel, or being able to punch a pillow or a punching bag, go to the gym, run. All of those are healthy ways. Dance it out, breathe through it, channeling the anger in healthy ways, and then being able to communicate to the ones you love from a very healthy place. I am feeling when you did that behavior, or right now I need time, I need space. Please give me that time and space. See, sometimes what I have found is that when you don't say no, and you keep saying yes, 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 and the anger and the resentment keeps building and building and building, and then it becomes an explosion of rage. Or when you're not taking care of yourself, you feel depleted, and you become more and more depleted. And so it's learning how to do the self-care before the explosion, before the rage. And so that is something, learning how to express yourself differently. The more that you do your self-care behaviors, the more you take care of yourself, all part of self-love, the more you will see the behaviors that are not serving you start going away. And if they're not, those behaviors are calling you to look at them, to acknowledge them, address them. For example, I keep feeling there's someone out there, one of you, somebody needs to hear this, about lying. Now, as human beings, we may do lies here and there, white lies. However, the more honest you can become, the more you feel better about yourself. And there are ways, the things that you would lie about. Usually lies are is a self-protective mechanism. And you had that self-protective mechanism probably for a very long time. You probably developed it. You might have witnessed one of your parents lying. You might have started lying when you were young to protect yourself from getting punished. However it started, it's the more that you can understand, the more that you can Allow yourself to treat and acknowledge and heal those places that are hurting. Because the part of you that started lying really wanted to feel safe and protected. And there may be other reasons, and you need to discover for yourself what it is. But through my experience and through my journey, usually that's one of the reasons, one of the biggest reasons people lie. Think about it. And also, sometimes you have the white lies where you don't want to hurt somebody else. That's and so that there's a very subtle. It's also around perhaps finding other ways to do it without. Because the truth is that people actually on a very subtle level can pick up when you're not telling the truth. So it doesn't really serve you or someone else. Anyway, it just started coming to me to talk about that. So I just go with the flow and allow that energy to move. What's really, and this is really, really an important part of self-love, is how are you talking to yourself? Are you acknowledging yourself? Or are you treating yourself? Are you saying mean things to yourself? Oh, I'm such a stupid idiot. Nope. Again, let's say you made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. We're all human. Reframe it. How can you learn from this experience? How can you learn from this experience? And learning positive self-talk is really, really important. You have a meeting or a test or something that's coming up that maybe you feel anxious about or nervous about. And maybe you've heard of self-fulfilling prophecy. So self-fulfilling prophecy is how you're thinking about it, how you're viewing it. You can create that reality. So if you're negatively thinking, oh, this is not going to happen, I can't do this, I don't know how, I'm so stupid, or I'm not good enough, like what are the things you're saying to yourself? And then turning it around and saying, you have an important meeting. I can do this. I know how to do this. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure you know what you're doing. I've got this. I've got this. I can do this. And if this is for my highest and greatest good, this will go through. This can happen. No, the positive self-talk is really, really crucial. And then underneath that is the deeper healing. And so learning to love yourself is doing both. So if you are feeling, yes, I can do this, and there's an alignment, that's where you want to be. Body, mind, emotion, spirit, you're aligned, you feel it, you know it, it's going to happen. But if you're saying, I know I can do this, I know I can do this, but you're not totally feeling it, that's where healing comes in and what you need to do to heal yourself. I wanted to let you know that I'm doing a masterclass on February 16th. And even if you're listening to this podcast at a later time, check out my website. I have masterclasses every month. So go to inspiredandempoweredliving.com/masterclass to sign up for the next masterclass. And during the masterclass, we'll talk about The one that's coming up is 3 ways to grow your business, 3 keys to grow your business. February 16th, 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern. And you can go to inspiredandempoweredliving.com/masterclass and sign up, and you'll find out more about how to move forward in your life, how to move forward in your business, how to take your work, your life to new levels. And you can find out more all about, well, we're live on Tuesday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern on W4WN.com, Talk4TV.com, and YouTube. And join us also on the podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, and Apple, and many more. And I really, we're going to continue on the power of self-love in a couple of weeks. We have a surprise thing next week. You'll find out if you listen and tune in. And then we'll be live again in a couple of weeks. And I really want to wish you an inspired and empowered day and an inspired and empowered week. Have a great one, everybody. Goodbye for now.